All right, it's 5 o'clock. It is time for the Prospects Chat. It's Monday. It's Phil Goyette, Michael Govier, at MJ Govier on Twitter, at Phil of Sports. Phil of Sports. That's Phil, because that's Phil's first name. Right, Phil?
That is.
All right. Of course, Palazzo Podcast at protonmail.com. If you have any emails or questions, we'll happily read those. We really want your questions. Really, really important to the show that you pop in the live stream right here. Ask a question about your keeper league, your dynasty league, any prospect that's up in the majors or that's a complex ball. It could be anywhere, any type of prospect, anytime. Phil has no limits when it comes to prospects. So make sure you ask the questions in the live chat and we'll cover them. And we'll also talk about some other stuff that's going on in our own purview. And follow the show on Twitter. Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah, give me 2.
You know the drill. All right, Phil, let's dive right into it. It is 30 minutes or less of prospect analysis. On the cover today, I've got Nick Solak and O'Neal Cruz on our little graphic that we create for the show. So Nick Solak came back on Saturday, and he's back in the bigs. He had a nice game Saturday night. He played this afternoon, actually. Was over 3 in the 8th inning last I checked. But do you expect Nick Solak to be better than he was in his awful, awful kind of lost 2021?
Yeah, I really thought he was going to hit. He's been a guy I've liked as maybe deeper. Yeah, at one point he was like a deeper dive prospect, and then he got a little more known. So he's a guy I liked for a number of years. I really thought he would be able to hit, get on base, hit for some power, steal some bases, play a few different positions. But it just never clicked for him the first time around at the MLB level. But you got to remember that prospect development is not linear. So some guys hit the ground running because the league is not prepared to handle them. And then the league adjusts to them. Some guys just cannot adjust to the league out of the gate. And they need that time to figure it out. So I'm hoping Solak maybe becomes a really excellent buy low for some people. Now he's getting another shot at it this time around.
Yeah, he could do
Still
it all.
Think he can hit.
He definitely could hit. His hit tool was one of the things I liked most. I forget the steals. The Rangers did run a lot in 2020.
Yeah.
Though it was a brief season. It was not like the Padres ran this year by any means, but Nick Solak can hit the ball. He can hit for average, and he can hit 20, 25 home runs. I do believe that's very much in play.
Yep, and that Rangers team likes to run, like you said, so.
It's just one of the biggest disappointments for me in 2021 as a player, manager, fantasy person, right? My teams were very, very heavily invested in Solak, and I just reloaded. In fact, in GLARF, which is the Great Lakes Area Roto Fantasy League, I reinvested in Solak about 3 weeks ago, waiting for the call, because I knew he would come back. It was the most obvious return of all returns, and I'm so glad he finally got the chance to do it. And I think he could help some of us win some leagues here down the stretch in the final 5 weeks. I really do.
Yeah. Could be just timing. Sometimes it's just the timing issue, and the guys can't get the timing figured out if they don't struggle at the MLB level, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right about that. Nick Solak, we all are wishing for the best, and his career is far from over. So all you Solak lovers, every time I mention Nick Solak on Twitter, I get a lot of responses. So there's a lot of people who liked his skill set coming into this year, and I think they were expecting what most of us were expecting. But for 2022, I'm going big on Nick Solak again. I just believe that sometimes shit happens. Life sucks. He had a 2-homer game in April. He stole a couple bases. Things were looking great. And he just had the terrible, terrible stretch. It happens. So I'm in. I'm in 2022.
Yeah.
What about O'Neal Cruz? O'Neal Cruz of the Pirates. He's somebody that I really like. He's a huge dude. I mean, he's 6'7"?
Yeah,
big guy.
At least, I think. Yep.
Yeah. It's strange to see him over there. I think he's probably more of a third baseman, but he plays shortstop too, right? I mean, he is a shortstop, so.
Yeah.
What do we see? Do we see him coming up this year, maybe getting an opportunity to play, or is this more of a 2022 situation?
I think it's a 2022 situation. I think he's only made it to Double-A this year. But believe it or not, he could play shortstop at the MLB level, even with the size, which is just wild. But I remember I haven't looked at his defensive stats this year, but his 2019 defensive stats were surprisingly really good at short. So he has the arm for sure to handle shortstop. And he manages to control his body well enough to have enough range, I think, to cover the position. He could definitely, he's only 22, so he could slow down. But if he slows down, he could play right field as an option. I guess some third base. I don't know that Hayes is probably a Gold Glove third baseman they've got plugged in there. So I don't know that he bumps Hayes out of the way, but he could be one of these multi-position dudes too. That could be like outfield, shortstop, third base or something, which would just be beautiful. And like you said, I don't know that he gets called up this year, but he's a guy that you're going to watch to potentially make the team out of spring training next year.
Some reason that reminds me of Steven Moya. Remember Steven Moya of the Tigers?
Yeah.
He was tall too. He was like 6'7". He was a big dude. He didn't really pan out. He got a taste in the majors and it kind of just flamed out.
He was one of those guys with like the 400 ISO or something crazy like that, like a 40% home run to fly ball rate in the minors. That was like, I actually owned him in a few dynasty leagues because the power was so big, and I think I've talked about this before. Sometimes you get Steven Moya, but the other guy from that area that you might get is like Joey Gallo. So, when you mine that vein, you're going to get some guys that crash and burn. But it's weird because Moya, like, he did crash and burn, but maybe it was closer than we think. You know what I mean? Like, if just a couple other little things go right for him, maybe we're still talking about him in fantasy. So
sometimes it's a fine line, man. It could go either way. You start hitting or you don't, and then you don't really get another opportunity. If you do hit, you're allowed some more time. And it's just a matter of that. It could also be related to some of the stuff that you can't hit in the majors, which sometimes separates the men from the boys. Apparently,
I'll go a little deep here, but I was reading the book Dune on my vacation this weekend, and there's a segment where he's talking about the science, and the two most scientific truths in the universe are chance and error, right? So a lot of this stuff can be just like knife's edge. If just random chance things break a little bit differently, maybe Moya's a legend now, so you can't approach this stuff with too much certitude.
No, you certainly cannot. That's true, Phil. We're live with Phil Goyette. We're doing the Monday Prospects Chat. In 30 minutes or less, we get in, we get out, we move on with our lives. And hopefully we've covered as many prospects as we possibly can. I'm MJ Govier. He's Phil of Sports on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Palazzo Podcast. 2 L's and 2 wonderful Z's.
Utah, give me 2.
Where else you want to go with this, Phil? By the way, you guys, drop the questions in here. I know you guys have keeper and dynasty questions. There's a lot of people watching this right now. I see the numbers, so don't be shy. Pop your questions in the live stream right here, and we will answer them. Phil knows all.
The whole universe hasn't transitioned to football yet.
It's a slower day for football on Mondays, I feel like, too. This is our chance. This is our window to dive into some baseball before everyone sets their lineups, and then they forget about it for the rest of the week. But who else should we be taking a look at around MLB, the minors? I know that we did the Roto Fanatic half-hour variety show, which was our first podcast. You could check that out on rotofanatic.com and our new pod feed, the Roto Fanatic content channel. You talked about some guys that were good hitters in the Arizona Complex League.
And one of them got called up to full season. So Owen Casey, the Canadian slugging prospect for the Cubs, he was originally drafted by the Padres, but got traded to the Cubs in the Yu Darvish deal, made up to full season ball. So congrats. And it's because he was just raking in the complex. So he was well advanced for that level, which is awesome to see because he's still a teenager. So look out.
Watch out now. Watch out.
And that's a Cubs system that needs some guys like that to pop. So
yes. I want to give you a few names. Let me do this. I want to give you a few names from Dynasty that I'm curious about. I want to get your immediate feedback. Can you handle it?
Yeah, stump the chump style. I'm in.
What is Eric Haas's Dynasty relevance?
I think if you own him in Dynasty, he's a guy you're going to hold right now. I don't think you look to drop. I think you hold. You're not going to trade him off. And you hope he repeats next year what he did this year. So I think he is relevant. If he's relevant in your league right now, he'll be relevant in your league again next year.
He's 28 years old, I believe. So he's no spring chicken, but he's providing numbers at a position that you really could use those numbers at.
Yep. And usually cardinal sin number one in dynasty leagues is people approach it too much like a dynasty league and not enough like a redraft league. So really your starting point should be, how do you value Haas in a redraft format or just for fantasy baseball? His valuation shouldn't change that much because he's 28 years old. It actually doesn't matter that much. And, he's a type of prospect that sometimes develops later in his career. So, don't make that mistake of thinking, well, he's 28, so I'm going to get rid of him.
Yes. See, this is one of those guys that falls into that category who kind of showed up out of nowhere, frankly, kind of left for dead a little bit, but given an opportunity, he's really thrived, and he can provide you with a winning dynasty team in 2022, possibly. He could be a part of that team. So I just think it's important that these kind of guys don't get dismissed entirely.
Yeah, and when you're hitting for power in that crappy power hitting ballpark that he hits in, that shows you the power is legit, man. If you can hit for power in Detroit, you can hit for power anywhere.
Agreed. What about Lamonte Wade Jr. of the Giants?
Yeah, I got my Giants cap on.
You do have your Giants cap on. It looks very lovely on your gorgeous head of hair, by the way. Very sexy man, Phil Goyette. Not only does he know prospects, he's a sexy MFer.
I have the hat on because there is no gorgeous head of hair, but I think it's pronounced. I think it's pronounced Lamont, I believe.
See, that's what I thought. Some asshole said it's Lamonte. I'm like, dude, no, it's Lamont. Now I look like the asshole because I didn't trust my gut. I didn't trust my gut, Phil. Damn it.
So I talked to Roger Munter early on in the season. Roger has a great podcast called There Are Giants, and then also his own site where he really digs into the Giants system. And Lamont was someone he said to keep an eye on really early in the year. And we talked about how the Giants seem to have this weird knack for finding, like it's spanned back a decade now, those type of contributors from within the system that I guess he came over from Minnesota, but just kind of guys that aren't really prestigious prospects, but come up to the MLB team and just dominate. Their team right now has like 3 or 4 guys that are like that. So, and like Brandon Crawford has been a part of that team. Was never a highly rated prospect, really, especially offensively. And he's still a good fantasy dude now in 2021. We're talking about him. So,
actually, I haven't looked at Brandon Crawford's stats in a minute. He's 34 years old, and he was killing it in the first half. I got to believe he's slowed down because I have not heard his name in a while. That's probably...
He's always like a $1 guy or like a, reserve round draft pick guy in fantasy.
Yep. No, that's very true. There's no doubt about that. I want to ask about another Giant, though. Joey Bart. Joey Bart was a very high draft pick in the real draft for MLB, and it's not over, but where are we in Joey Bart's career right now? Hasn't got the opportunity to play regularly. Buster Posey came back this year with a vengeance. Looks amazing, and that's bad news for him as well, although Posey could move off catcher because he's getting older, not any younger. How do you see Bart's career playing out over the next 1.5 to 2 years?
Yeah, he's always had the hit tool question, I think. I think some people thought he was going to be able to hit quite a bit.
That was the whole thing when he got drafted. It was like, this guy can hit as a catcher. We got to have him, right? Out of Georgia Tech, I believe.
Yep. He's tons of power. A great physical specimen. I think the defense is not necessarily rough, but he's not advanced enough to handle the MLB pitching staff in a playoff chase like the Giants are in right now. So that's makes it tough just because of the position he plays. I think I haven't looked at him recently, but about the midway point of the season, he's a guy whose surface stats were kind of outperforming what the underlying stuff was that I look at. So when I was looking at the estimated xWOBA and barrels, a lot of his production had been driven by BABIP. He's got a 418 BABIP at AAA this year. So like his 387 WOBA, for example, looks really good, but he's maybe ballooned by like 100 points of BABIP this year. And he's a big catcher that hits the crap out of the ball. Those guys are usually the worst in terms of BABIP, but like the most likely to be around 300. So I'm still not sold on the guy. He's not anybody I'd ever invested in my dynasty leagues. And I don't think I would still at this point. He might even be somebody I'd be trying to trade if somebody's looking for a catching prospect.
Yeah, that's probably the reality. Bummer. We're talking live with
the
Phil Goyette.
DH though. NLDH changes his situation for sure.
Well, Helmet Cormalis has checked in. Hello, Helmet. Good to see you. We're talking live with Phil Goyette here on the 30 Minutes or Less Prospects Chat that we do every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Sub this channel, Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's. Sub it.
Utah, give me 2.
Helmet wants to know your opinions on 2 prospects. Phil, here we go. Lewin Diaz. Will Marlins finally play him down the stretch? Let's start there.
Sure. What the hell do they have to lose, that organization? So, yeah, I think they need to get a look at him again. He's hit well at the MLB level. Dude can hit. So I know he's a kind of a first base prospect, which makes people a little less interested in him, especially in dynasty formats. But don't forget, Pete Alonso was a first base prospect too. So Lewin, I think, should get a shot at it.
By the way, I just want to throw this out there for us and Helmet and everybody else there watching. Brandon Crawford has 2 home runs since July 1st, 2. So things have really, really slowed down because that's baseball. No matter what you do in a 6-week stretch, it's never going to last. Unless you're Shohei Ohtani or, Mike Trout, something like that maybe. But Juan Soto. All right, so Lewin Diaz, that's fun. It seems like they have a logjam of players that they might have to move there positionally. Do you think that's a reality?
They've got kids all over the place. I guess part of the trick for that org is getting enough time to everybody to figure out what they have with everybody. Like, Jazz was a guy that people weren't super high on until he came up and just burned. So, and the org's not going to know that unless he's playing at the MLB level. So, it's definitely a balancing act to figure out how to fit all those guys in. And I'm blanking. Mattingly's still the manager there. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not going anywhere. I think he signed another extension, believe it or not. So,
is that a skill set that dude has? I don't know. I don't know.
That's a great question. This is a prospect show, not a manager show, though. I will tell you this. Second part of Helmet's question. By the way, thank you so much, Helmet. Sub the channel here. We do this every Monday. We have other shows during the week. We love having you aboard. Thank you, Helmet, for your question. Elahiris Montero, kicking ass, clearly past a wrist injury. Future outlook?
I like him still. So he had a great year in the Cardinals system. Super unheralded. So if you picked him up at that time, it was like a free in-season pickup. He's with the Rockies now, which is cool because that means he gets Coors to potentially hit him in the future. I don't know that he's a third baseman really at any point in his MLB career. So he might be into that weird Colorado first base log jam that they always seem to have for whatever reason. But he'd be another guy the DH would help a lot. But he can hit for power, and that's always a starting point for fantasy is you want dudes that can hit 30 home runs. So great shout on Elahiris. He's having a great year. Hold him if you've got him in Dynasty. If he's sitting on the wire in Dynasty, he's definitely a guy I would want to pick up given how good he's doing, but also his proximity to the MLB.
Excellent. How about Ziggy Bud? What's up, Ziggy Bud? That's a sweet name, by the way, Ziggy Bud. Is Anderson Tejada a forgotten man in Texas? They keep bringing up anybody but him. Anderson Tejada, Phil.
Yeah, I don't know if they just don't want to see him fall on his face again. I forget. I think his strikeout rate was over 40% the last time he was up at the MLB level. He's super tooled up, and defensively, he can contribute to the team. So as to Ziggy Bud's point, I agree. I think it's probably a bad sign for him if the Rangers are passing over him, given the level of defense he can contribute. So he's not somebody that's really high up on my radar. That being said, the tools are there. So if he does a Jazz Chisholm type thing where he does get a shot and just starts burning, then you need to pick him up immediately.
Immediate pickup. Well said. Thanks, Ziggy Bud. That's fun.
That's a good question, though. Yeah.
Yeah, the questions are rolling in. You guys are participating in the show. This is what it's all about. Thank you. How about Carlos Marcano, our main man in Costa Rica? Carlos, how you doing, buddy? Don't know if you guys talked about him already. Cade Cavalli. That's alliteration.
Yeah, great choice by the Nats in the draft. Very athletic pitcher who's obviously exploded this year. He's one of these guys where you're like, you put him in a bucket. Is he a top 10, top 5, top 3 starting pitching prospect? He's kind of inching his way up into that elite tier. I kind of want to see him do it again next year a bit. I don't know how. Be interesting to see how aggressive the Nats are with him, because that isn't an org that's shied from calling up kids ever in Rizzo's tenure. So I guess if he's shoving, they might use him next year. So I guess that's my 2 cents on Kate. I do like him. I like him a lot. I don't think you're getting him in Dynasty right now. And the acquisition cost is probably prohibitive at this point because he's blown up so much this year. Unfortunately, he was the guy you wanted to get in like the supplemental or first year player draft.
Yeah, he's had a big rise, a massive K9 rate going on in the minor leagues, 15.7 at high A, and then he moved up to double A, and it's still at 12.4. That's promising. He's still keeping the Ks up, and he's not getting super lucky either with a lot of the other random stats that you would think. He's got a killer FIP, a 2.99 at double A. That's legit with a 2.79 ERA, so that's in line with consistency.
Fastball, it's like a fastball first, so he's got the major league fastball, which is the building block usually. And some guys that don't have it can kind of, like Detroit you're seeing with Matt Manning. I don't know if he ever had the major league fastball at this point in his career yet. And if you don't have it once you get up, that will be exposed, guaranteed. There's a lot of guys that make a major league career out of just hitting fastballs. So,
My man.
He was my man. Not anymore so much. I'm kind of concerned about him. But hey,
I don't know. But there's young. There's still time.
Yes, I'm not done. But he's toughed it out. He's been beat up by Cleveland a lot, a few times particularly, and he's still growing. So I'm going to chill on Manning. But I am concerned that he will not be. He might be the third of the triumvirate, I think, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Billy B, my guy from Canada, another wonderful Canadian. Hello, Bill Bradley. Good to see you again. Hey, dudes. What is your feelings about Garrett Mitchell? Struggles at double A, just a part of the process? Question mark?
Yes. I think Billy B, I think your inclination there is correct that it is just some struggling going on at double A, because he looked like a, untamable stallion to start his professional career. So give it some time. He's definitely not a guy you want to do anything but hold right now if you have him on your fantasy squad. The upside is just so great there between on-base ability. The strikeouts aren't terrible. He's got enough speed to steal some bases, and he's got a lot of pop too. And I just pulled him up. Part of the reason why it looks so horrible right now is his BABIP at double A is 208, which over a 27 game sample, you can't really say anything other than he's just been getting killed by his BABIP.
Yeah, this is a very small sample size, so nothing to freak out about.
If he had a more normalized BABIP, his on-base percentage would be like 380 right now. So
380. Oh,
yeah, 280.
Yeah, 280 sucks. 380 is good. That's baseball. We're talking live with Phil Goyette here. We're doing the 30 minutes or less prospect chat. We do every Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Sub our channel, Plaza Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah.
You can find it here every time, all the time. All the previous shows, too, are on the channel. So if you want to go back and see what Phil said about other prospect shows, we've been doing this for several weeks now. So they're all here anytime you want them.
Getting some awesome questions this week, too, which is like the most fun part of the show.
It really is. It does make the show. Look at this. Thanks, guys. Thank you for asking questions. That was a hot streak of questions. We went on a run there.
And they were good ones, too.
Those were real prospect questions. They weren't asking like, hey, what do you think about Juan Soto? Is he good?
Right. Give me a guy that's not owned in my league I should get. That's the one I like to get.
I could dig on that. I could. I just want to ask this real quick. Is Scott Kingery's career over?
I don't know. I hope not. He's a guy I owned everywhere. So I still think there's something there.
Wow.
I'm unrepentant Pollyanna, but Kingery dingery dong, as I always like to call him. I always thought he had the power and speed to be relevant in fantasy, even if he was struggling. But he just really struggled. And I don't think the Phillies did him many favors throughout his career so far.
He's going to be one of those sad tales where the franchise screwed him over, let him down, just did not. I mean, in 2019, he hit 19 home runs. It was exciting. He stole 15 bases. That's a nice building block season, hitting 260.
Yep. That's always going to make you some bucks in Roto. So maybe he needs to be freed of that organization and just find somewhere else to play.
I talk a lot about mental health. Something happened to him on the mental health side of things. Obviously, he's had a lot of physical injuries here too, but something else went sour in all of his health, and I feel bad for the dude. I really do. But obviously, nobody cares about Scott Kingery anymore. What about the Nick Senzel news? So they reversed his option. The Reds did after the knee had some fluid on it. What the hell is going on here? And is this just hell on earth now? Because he is tantalized forever, and even I'm an idiot because the people I respect, a couple, I won't name their names here, I'll do them that favor, but they really sold me on Senzel in 2021. Like, dude, this is the year.
And he was hurt again all year, and just in random and strange and new ways. So the problem with all those injuries too is that the most likely indicator of a future injury is a past injury at that location. And now he's just like racked them all up. And the migraine thing is tough. I don't wonder how much of that he has to deal with. Like, I can't imagine hitting a major league pitching period, let alone dealing with the migraine issue. That this seems incredible. Like that he's was able to battle through it. Yeah, or vertigo. Sorry, he's not a migraine. He's vertigo. Right.
Yeah.
Even worse, probably. So, and then you've got knee. You've got what do you do? Broke his hand. Didn't he have a shoulder problem?
Shoulder. Torn labrum. It's been everything. So is it abandoned ship on him entirely? Are you done? Like you don't want to do with him.
Yeah, I would have traded him a couple years ago.
Yeah, I'm stuck with him in a dynasty team. I'm an idiot. But hey, we all make mistakes. That's okay. Bill Bradley's making pork back ribs, by the way, Billy B. Canadian pork back ribs. Okay. But beyond the ribs. Maybe we call Bill, you can have your own segment on the show. We'll call it Beyond the Ribs. And you'll ask us.
Rib chat. I'm in. Let's talk your rub. Like, what do you got going on with your rub? I make my own sauce from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, the key. Bill knows his shit here, man.
He does. The key to good ribs is the rub.
Yeah. Yes. Do you put cinnamon in there? Cinnamon is a little trick of mine.
A little bit, not too much, just right.
No, just a hint. Yeah.
But beyond the ribs, Bill B wants to know, Nate Pearson, remember him? He was a superstar prospect, like the pitching prospect in baseball, even a year ago. Seriously, like maybe 15 months ago max. But Nate Pearson, is he going to be a reliever or a starting pitcher going forward?
I think he's a reliever, if I had to put money on it. I don't think he can stay healthy as a starter. I don't think he can handle the workload. Yep. So I would guess relief, and he's probably gonna be frustrating because he probably won't go to relief immediately. He'll probably flip back and forth. So
where he's
Manoah,
been,
it's crazy, but Manoah was the guy you wanted in that system. Manoah was the starting pitcher you wanted to get off the Blue Jays system.
It's becoming very clear now. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's gonna be tough for Pearson because he's gonna have to swallow the massive pill of being that stud and the confidence and the expectations that come with that. And I don't care what you say, there is a downswing. There is like a demotive feeling to becoming a reliever, especially if you're supposed to be a superstar starter, right?
Yeah. Probably a very tough line to walk as a manager to figure out how to be able to harness that. And it's probably different for every player too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a mess. It's a total mess. I feel bad for him. I really loved, was it the slider? What was it, that nasty pitch? He had a really nasty pitch, which could still be very effective.
Fastball is really good too. So the stuff is there, man. He's just got to show us that he can stay healthy over a starting pitching workload. And the org knows that. They're going to maximize his value because it's important to the org. So
let me throw one caveat real quick here. Carlos Rodon was left for dead. His career was toast, and everybody wanted him to be a reliever to sign a deal in this past offseason, and he refused it all, and he got his life together, and now he's a Cy Young candidate this year. So I know he's a couple years older than Pearson's 25, Rodon's 27, 28, but they're not that far apart, and they are sort of following a similar lineage. The only problem is Rodon had at least 1 or 2 seasons where he pitched 155 plus innings and was at least solid.
Yeah.
Pearson doesn't even have that.
Yeah. Had a better track record, a college track record of pitching. I don't know. That's not a bad comp though. You know, Rodon's kind of like Manoah.
That's interesting.
Really good slider. And this year he added like 2 or 3 ticks to the fastball because he lost some weight, changed his delivery, and he's like a new pitcher.
By the way, here's Billy B's rub recipe: brown sugar, dried mustard, cayenne, garlic powder, and onion powder. That sounds promising.
Those all go in mine. It's a good base. I have some more tricks up my sleeve, but
well, maybe next week we're going to hear more about Phil's rub. I can't wait. That's the rub on Phil's rub. Bill is sad too. Bill's very sad about Pearson. That makes me sad.
Yeah, right. Big Nate in the bullpen. I mean, I'll tell you what, as a Blue Jays fan, maybe it's something, if it happens, you actually wind up saying this is awesome because you've got that arm in the back end that can really lock games down for the team.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, look who's here at the end of the show. Jasper,
hey,
you made
Jasper.
it as we're closing the show. Hi, Jasper. Good to see you, buddy. I haven't seen you in a minute. That's it, though. Show's over. 30 minutes has come and gone. We did what we could. You guys asked a lot of great questions. That was by far the best audience participation that we've had on this show. So kudos to all of you who made it happen. Billy B and Helmet and Ziggy. Awesome.
Yeah. Carlos Marcano hopped in.
Love Carlos. Good stuff. We'll be back next week. We'll do the
mind.
same thing again, right?
Yeah, I'll be here. And
Yeah,
be there.
Phil will be there. I'll be here. Palazzo Podcast at ProtonMail.com. Palazzo Podcast on Twitter. 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah.
Make sure
Give me
to
2.
sub the channel. Let's grow this YouTube channel. Let's expand the base and connect with more people so we can have even more questions. We can have so many questions that we can't even answer them all. That's our goal here, is to do 30 minutes of just endless questions about your prospects, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks to Phil. Follow Phil at Phil of Sports on Twitter. I'm at MJ Govier. And that'll do it. We'll see you guys next week right here.